Imagine a game that combines the vibe of a PS1-era Resident Evil and blends that gameplay with the modern XCOM titles. Well, then you'd have Vultures, Scavengers of Death. As someone that loves classic Resident Evil and turn-based tactics games, this felt like it was tailor-made for me. And if any of that sounds cool, I think you'll enjoy it too. So in this video, I'll be sharing 5 reasons why you need to play Vultures, Scavengers of Death. And the first thing is its PS1 inspired visuals. Now, if you're like me and grew up with the original PlayStation, this game will feel right at home. It's got that low polygon graphics, low texture environments, minimal dialogue, and something about how the characters kind of just bob up and down during dialogue sequences and their mouths don't even move. It seems like that would be a negative, but for me and many others, I don't think it is. I truly love it. There's something so wonderfully nostalgic about this visual style, and I'm so glad more teams like Team Vultures are using it. I've heard so many people say that this era's visual style has not aged well, and I totally disagree. When done right and intentionally, I think it can work really well. And it works particularly well here because it's so obviously inspired by the PS1 era Resident Evil games. Now, the second thing is the survival horror gameplay. While the combat is turn-based, much of how this game plays is deeply rooted in survival horror. The game works on a mission system, and depending on the mission, you'll play as either Leopoldo or Amber. Now, they mostly play the same, but each has their own unique abilities. Amber, for example, has this sort of hook shot where she can either pull enemies or objects towards her or launch herself towards a wall or an enemy, which she can then kick backwards. Leopoldo, on the other hand, can swap spots with an object like this barrel here. And when you begin the mission, you're given an objective that is constantly updating as you progress through the mission. And despite it having turn-based tactics combat, it plays like a survival horror game as you're exploring. You can control your movement speed either by sneaking, walking, or running, and this is important because you can actually attack an enemy from behind if you sneak up on them before they see you. And this is really great when you're trying to conserve ammo. And yes, you have to actually conserve ammo like a survival horror game. You don't have unlimited ammo. Your knife is super important, and I'll get more into that during the combat section. And as you explore, you're constantly running into locked doors or finding objects that lead you to side quests. And these side quests will have you go to certain rooms to find a special item or weapon. And there's often multiple ways to get into certain rooms, and you need to plan your route carefully so you don't run out of ammo for your gun. Because sometimes you can run into an area where there's a ton of zombies and you just can't beat them all. Now, usually you'll have more than enough healing items, but throwing items like Molotov cocktails are rare, so use those wisely. And like survival horror, sometimes it's best to just run away. In fact, there's a really cool mechanic where you can immobilize enemies. When you attack enemies, you can aim at different body parts, and if you aim at their legs, you have a chance to stun them so they don't move for a turn, and that allows you to escape. I definitely did that my fair share of times while I was playing. And the game also has safe rooms. There you can save your progress on a PC. There's the item box where you can swap out items if you're running out of space. And there's also water coolers that you can find through levels. These give you a bit of HP back, but they're one use only, so use them wisely. It's a totally different way to experience a survival horror game, and I didn't expect it to work, but it absolutely does. Now, for the third reason, we have the tactical combat. While yes, it has a lot of survival horror elements, Vultures is just as much a turn-based tactical game, and it's genuinely great. Normally, you'll walk around and explore freely, but once you encounter an enemy, combat immediately begins and the rules totally change. From there, you're given a set amount of AP or action points and MP or movement points. You can move and take actions in whatever order you like, which is really nice and flexible. Now, most actions only take 1 AP, but headshots take 2 AP. I guess it's about like you trying to aim more carefully. And much like XCOM, hitting has percentages to them. And the closer you are, the higher chances you have of hitting the enemy, but also the higher risk because after your turn is over, they can easily attack you. And you have to actually reload your gun, which also takes AP, so it's really important to reload whenever you can. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you can't turn yourself around when you're done moving. So if you're saying running away from an enemies and you're facing away from them, but then it's their turn, they can easily attack you from behind to do more damage and cause bleed. And let me tell you, bleeding sucks in this game. You don't want that. You take a little bit of damage every time you move, and it's really easy to drain your HP. It's best to keep enemies at a distance or make absolutely sure you can kill them if you move in close. Thankfully, early on, the game is pretty generous with healing items, so you can learn and make mistakes, but you better adapt as the game goes on because it definitely gets harder. You also have environmental tools that you can use in combat, like explosive barrels. You can electrocute the water, and if you're Amber, you can actually use gaps and take advantage of that to either avoid or kick enemies. She's honestly way more fun to play as her tool set is more flexible. She was definitely my favorite to play through the missions. And there's also occasional bosses and mini bosses. There's like this SWAT guy where he's wearing big armor and you have to kind of destroy his armor to do real damage. There's another that kind of mind controls enemies, and once you defeat him, all the other ones die. So there's a really cool variety to enemies. And when you're exploring, you can also find cassette and VHS tapes. That leads me to the next point, and that's the upgrade system. So once you find those cassettes or VHS tapes and you bring them back to your base, you can then exchange them for currency in this sort of shop. And in this shop, you can upgrade your gear so weapons do more damage. You can also get armor that gives you different buffs, like this helmet that prevents blindness, and a ton more. Now, the development team actually delayed this game to add in this feature, and I think it was totally worth it because it works really well. It makes for much more of an incentive to explore, and it gives you a nice sense of progression. And the board is huge. There's a ton of stuff to unlock. And what's really nice is you can actually replay missions in case you missed something, because the game will tell you what you did and what you got after the mission's over. Now, there's no way to grind and get infinite currency, but it does really incentivize you to explore thoroughly through each level. And that brings me to my last point, and that's great design. This is gonna sound minimal, but I promise you it's not. I play so many games, from one-man indie teams to massive AAA titles, and it blows me away how many of them have bad tutorials, bad UI, bad controls, or simply don't teach their players well. That is not the case with Vultures. Here, the game has great detailed tutorials for both characters. It has really simple and clean UI, it explains everything, has very readable maps, both on the minimap and with the in-game visuals as you're just walking around. And that's really key to a game like this when you can miss items, so I love that it's so simple to read and understand. I honestly never once felt confused or didn't understand what I was doing or where I was supposed to go. And when you're mashing up deep genres like survival horror and turn-based tactics, there's so much room to confuse players, but Team Vultures absolutely nailed it. Now, the game is out today for PC, and if you liked what you saw and want to pick it up, I'll leave a link in the description and the pinned comment below so you can go give it a try. Thanks once again to Fire Squid Games for sponsoring this video, and you for watching.